6. Dag Diesel Torpedo Plant. The old Soviet Dag Diesel torpedo plant is a fascinating relic of history that stands proudly in the middle of the Caspian Sea, surrounded by water on every side. This abandoned factory once played a crucial role for the Dag Diesel complex. It was used to manufacture torpedoes and holds a unique place in the archives of industrial ingenuity. The bold concept of building a torpedo plant at sea was born in 1934. The plan involved creating a cement base along the seashore and transporting it to a designated location in the water, anchoring it to a mass of stones reinforced in the seabed. In 1935, the cement base actually became a reality, but engineers quickly realized that the artificial stone base alone wouldn't offer the necessary stability. To secure it more, they began the remarkable task of digging a 19-meter-long cavity in the sea bottom, filling it with stones and anchoring the ferro-cement base. This unconventional approach soon paid off, and by 1939 the factory was fully built and producing torpedoes. As the factory was isolated from the mainland, it was outfitted with residential quarters, a canteen, and even a library to accommodate its workers. During World War II, the production of torpedoes moved temporarily to the Kazakh SSR, but was later reinstated in Dagestan in 1944, a year before the end of the war. But as technology advanced, the plant became obsolete for torpedo testing, primarily because of the shallow waters surrounding it. In 1966, this branch of the Dag Diesel factory was closed and its equipment was dismantled. The once thriving factory was left to face the elements, slowly deteriorating over time. Today, the decaying structure is well past its prime, but it continues to captivate adventurers, parkour enthusiasts, photographers, and tourists. Accessible only by boat, the factory's entrances have suffered from neglect and are in extremely poor condition. But this challenge doesn't stop the truly curious. The abandoned Soviet torpedo plant remains a popular destination for those looking for a glimpse into a bygone era and the indomitable spirit of Soviet industrial ambition. It stands as a testament to human innovation and endurance, even as nature reclaims it in the heart of the Caspian Sea. 5. The Valley of the Mills, Sorrento. Nestled in the captivating region of Sorrento not far from Naples, there's an extraordinary and beautiful site called the Valle dei Mulini, or the Valley of the Mills. This unique location is covered in lush greenery that stretches as far as the eye can see. Within this vibrant landscape, a group of mill ruins once stood as bustling industrial centers, active until the early 20th century, but eventually abandoned during the 1940s. About 35,000 years ago, a volcanic eruption sculpted a deep valley into the limestone plateau next to the historic town of Sorrento. Over time, water coursing through the area created small channels that led to the establishment of human settlements. Evidence of these ancient communities can be seen in places like the prehistoric Nicolucci Cave and the archaeological site at Gaudo in the Piano of Sorrento. The Valley of the Mills, named after the mills who once thrived here, lies at the merging of two streams, the Casalano, Cesarano, and St. Antonio. It was here that the first mill used for wheat grinding was established in the 10th century. Flour mills flourished here, attracting other industries seeking to utilize the constant water flow. A sawmill catered to Sorrentine cabinet makers, while a public washhouse served the area's women for laundry and personal hygiene purposes. The transformation of the area started in 1866 when Tasso Square was built nearby, isolating the valley from the sea. This caused a sharp increase in the valley's humidity, making it increasingly uncomfortable to live in. As a consequence, the mills were slowly abandoned, and the area's industrial importance died off as flour milling shifted to nearby pasta mills. By the 1940s, the mills were finally closed and left to the elements for good. Ironically, the rise in humidity also made a unique microclimate, fostering the growth of spontaneous vegetation, an uncommon sight in southern Italy. One notable addition to the landscape was the rare Philetus vulgaris, a fern, along with other plant life that gradually consumed the remnants of the mills, blanketing them in a thick layer of greenery. Visitors interested in exploring the Valley of Mills can access the area through antique ramps with an entrance near the Stragazzi parking lot. The view from above, especially from Fui Mora Street, offers breathtaking sights that should not be missed. Next up, we'll take a closer look at the haunting beauty of an abandoned cooling tower in Charleroi, Belgium. But before we move on, if you're joining us for the first time, make sure you hit the subscribe button to unlock a treasure trove of incredible videos. And don't keep your thoughts to yourself. Drop a comment below and tell us what you'd like to see next. 4. Abandoned Cooling Tower, Charleroi. Nestled in the small neighborhood of Monceau-sur-Sambre in the Belgian town of Charleroi, there's a relic of industrial might, the abandoned cooling tower of Power Plant IM. This structure, now silent, still looms over the town, offering a haunting and dystopian backdrop for its surroundings. Power Plant IM was originally built in 1921, representing a significant feat of engineering for its time. After it was finished, it proudly claimed its status as one of Belgium's largest coal-burning power plants. At the heart of its operations stood the colossal cooling tower, which played a major role in the plant's function. Water was channeled into this structure, where it was cooled by winds rushing in through openings at the tower's base, sending columns of hot air upward. This ingenious system allowed the plant to cool around 480,000 gallons of water per minute, solidifying its importance as an energy source for locals. By the 1970s, Power Plant IM and its iconic tower were the primary energy supplier for the Charleroi area. The facility eventually underwent expansion, incorporating new components that could harness gas power as well as coal. It thrived as a vital part of the local energy infrastructure, offering power and sustenance to the growing industrial landscape. But the plant's illustrious days were numbered. As years passed, a dark revelation came to light. A report unveiled that Power Plant IM was responsible for 10% of Belgium's total CO2 emissions, drawing widespread criticism from environmental activists. In 2006, Greenpeace led protests that cast a spotlight on the plant's environmental impact. The building pressure led to its closure in 2007, marking the end of an era. After it was shut down, the site faced its own set of challenges. Reports of looting soon came out. Today, security guards maintain a watchful presence, trying to stop unauthorized entry. Yet the power plant remains abandoned, a silent sentinel of a past era. Plans for its demolition are on the docket, but until that day arrives, the cooling tower and the surrounding structures stay as a magnet for urban explorers, photographers, and adventurers eager to capture the unsettling beauty and poignant history of this industrial giant that now rests in a solemn abandonment. 3. Morncel Sea Forts, Thames Estuary. Rising from the waters of the Thames Estuary like rust-covered sentinels from a sci-fi novel, England's Morncel Army sea forts stand as decaying reminders of World War II's darkest days. Part of the Thames Estuary Defense Network, these anti-aircraft tower forts were built in 1942 to protect the Kent shores from potential attacks from Germany. These forts represent a unique blend of architectural ingenuity, wartime history, and an eerie beauty in their decay. Each fort has a cluster of 7 stilted structures surrounding a central command tower. Catwalks once connected the buildings, creating an interconnected complex positioned above the water. The forts were designed by Guy Morncel, a civil engineer from Britain renowned for his innovations in concrete bridge design. Originally, there were 3 of these forts, but only 2 remain to this day, the Red Sands Fort and the Shivering Sands Fort. After their successful wartime service, the forts were finally decommissioned in the 1950s. The Nore Army Fort had a particularly unfortunate fate, suffering damage from both a storm and a collision with a ship, leading to its eventual dismantling in 1959-60. During the 1960s and 70s, the remaining forts gained notoriety as pirate radio stations. Today, all the army forts stand abandoned, gradually succumbing to the harsh elements. Project Red Sands, which was founded in 2003, aims to protect and potentially restore the Red Sands Fort, chosen over the Shivering Sands Fort because it's better preserved. The forts have also inspired many artistic endeavors, with the artist Stephen Turner spending around 36 days at the Shivering Sands Fort back in 2005, matching the amount of time a World War II serviceman would have spent at the fort. This experiment in isolation resulted in a blog and a book created about the project. Additionally, in 2008, the iconic site was featured in a music video by a well-known group called The Prodigy. Exploring these forts directly is not advised, if not illegal, thanks to their hazardous condition, but they can be admired from a safe distance or by boat, offering a glimpse into the architectural relics and wartime history that continue to capture the imagination and curiosity of those who travel to the Thames estuary. 2. Bannerman Castle, Polpel Island, New York. Nestled in the middle of the Hudson River, about 50 miles north of New York City, is the enigmatic Bannerman Castle, an abandoned fortress that's become a hotspot for curious explorers. Situated on Polpel Island, this early 20th century structure has been an abandoned, crumbling ruin even since a devastating fire engulfed the site in 1969, casting an air of mystery and intrigue over its desolate, charred shores. But it wasn't until 1992 that the castle's fate took a turn towards good, when a resident from nearby Beacon, New York, established the Bannerman Castle Trust, aiming to breathe new life into the decaying structure and opening the island up to tourists and visitors. Bannerman Castle was named after Francis Bannerman, a Scottish arms dealer who in 1900 bought the island and began the construction of the castle the next year. Bannerman's journey into the arms trade started off as a young man, operating a military surplus business post-Civil War. His company, suitably named Bannerman's, quickly became the world's largest buyer of military surplus, with a grand showroom on New York's Broadway and Broome Street, catering to volunteers during the Spanish-American War. Bannerman's prowess in the trade reached its peak during this conflict, as he acquired a whopping 90% of all captured Spanish arms. To store this massive amount of inventory, he looked for an isolated location, and Polpel Island fit the bill to a T, given its uninhabited status and its history of being shunned by Native Americans in the Hudson Valley who believed it to be haunted. The castle itself was built in the style of baronial castles Bannerman saw during his trips to Scotland. The complex included an arsenal, storerooms, a summer house with docks, turrets, and even a moat around the main structure. Bannerman took personal interest in landscaping the grounds, forming a grand display of his inventory and business acumen. The castle served as an advertisement for his business, which continued to prosper for decades. His inventory was so extensive that during World War I, he sold cannons, uniforms, and blankets to the US government. Construction of the castle continued through the war and remained incomplete when Bannerman died in 1918. In 1920, a catastrophic event demonstrated why the arsenal was placed on an isolated island. The powder house exploded. Triggered by 200 tons of shells and powder, the explosion inflicted severe damage to the castle structure. Bannerman's family continued to live on the island until 1930, after which the castle fell into disrepair. In 1969, a fire, suspected to be caused by arson, reduced the castle to ruins. For decades later, Bannerman Castle was one of New York's most tantalizing abandoned sites, drawing urban explorers and ruin enthusiasts who ventured onto the island illegally to capture its haunting beauty. 1. Ryugyong Hotel, North Korea. In 1987, the foundations of a grand pyramid-shaped skyscraper were placed in the heart of North Korea's capital city, Pyongyang. The Ryugyong Hotel, designed to reach over 1,000 feet in height, promised to have at least 3,000 rooms and 5 revolving restaurants with breathtaking panoramic views. But the ambitious plans that aimed to open this structure were derailed just 2 years later, and the Hotel of Doom was finally born. While the Ryugyong Hotel achieved its planned height in 1992, it was a windowless hollow shell for 16 years, casting an unsettling and imposing shadow over the city. The hotel earned its moniker thanks to its unfulfilled promise and the uncertainty around its future. But as a response to Cold War rivalries, the hotel represented a unique piece of North Korean history. In 1989, as a political response to South Korea's achievements, North Korea organized the 1989 World Festival of Youth and Students, a socialist alternative to the Olympics. The Ryugyong Hotel was meant to be finished in time for the festival, with the goal of breaking the world record, which was held by South Korea at the time for the world's tallest hotel. But engineering challenges and economic strain put significant pressure on North Korea's already struggling economy. The Ryugyong Hotel remained incomplete, despite the country's efforts to prepare for the event by building new infrastructure, a stadium, expanding the airport, and new roads. The collapse of the Soviet Union left North Korea without much needed aid and investments, pushing the country into further economic crisis. The Ryugyong Hotel stands out not just for its towering height, but for its materials. Unlike traditional skyscrapers, this unique building is made of reinforced concrete instead of steel. The pyramidal design allowed for a massive base to support the upper levels, which needed to be lighter because of the limited availability of advanced construction materials available at the time. In recent years, extensive work has been undertaken in the area, making it accessible to the public. An LED lighting display was also added, turning the building into a light show and propaganda tool, showcasing North Korean history and slogans. Despite these developments, the question of whether the Ryugyong Hotel will ever open to guests is still unanswered. What other weird abandoned structures would you like us to make a video about? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.